Welcome. Today we are going to be talking about guts or facts. Now you might be wondering, what is this? Well, as a human being, you need your guts or the facts of a situation to make every decision of your life. Now, the decision you make determines the outcome of your life or business. And that's what we're going to be discussing today. Because today we're going to be looking at the guts, what is your gut? The facts, what are facts? How do they help your decision making? Which is more profitable? That's what we're going to be looking at today. So stay tuned for more. Your gut. Your gut is like your sixth sense, your intuition, your feeling. Is that thing that comes to you and pokes you to make a particular decision. You know, when you're angry and you sack your staff, that's gut. But that's negative gut. Positive gut can be said to be when in the movie, In the Pursuit of Happiness, Will Smith came into an interview without a shirt on, and he got the job. That's positive gut or positive intuition, because the employer gave him that job when he didn't look like the person that should get the job. That's the way gut works. Now you might ask, what are the basis for how you feel? What are the basis for that? Now, gut works on information that your brain has gathered that you cannot interpret. Maybe due to lack of technical know-how, due to maybe human fallibility or something. But the truth is, your brain has that information, but you can't process it at that point in time. So your brain sends that message to you as a sense of feeling or your gut. That's how it works. So it's not like it's coming from nowhere. No, it's actually coming from somewhere. It's actually coming from you. But because you cannot really understand it, that's why we call it gut. You just can't explain it. Now, the advantage of using your gut is that it sees what the fact cannot see. Now, what I mean by this is it goes ahead of you and sees what the facts of a particular situation cannot see. I'll give you a perfect example. There was a man named Bayo. His friend, who was a mechanic actually, his friend was closing down his own mechanic shop and he was selling off things at the giveaway price. So Bayo went there to see what he could take. Now the friend was like, "Oh, I have these seat belts and no one wants to take them. Do you want to take them?" Bayo was like, "I don't actually need them." But after a while he was like, "You know what? Let me have those seat belts." When I mean seat belts, I mean like car seat belt compartments that were extracted from vehicles. So Bayo took these seat belts and he took them to his workshop. He paid for them, but what he paid for them was not, reasonable. So he kept them. Few weeks down the line, the Federal Road Safety Corps comes up and says every vehicle must have a seat belt and everyone must use a seat belt while driving. And seat belts became a hot cake. Now, you can imagine what Bayo did. Of course, he tripled the price that he bought those things for and made a fortune out of it. Now, what am I trying to say? Now, the logic behind, or the facts behind this situation would say, you know what? I don't need this. No one buys seat belts. What am I going to use it for? It's going to be wastage. It's not going to get me any profit. But his gut feeling told him, you know what? Get those seat belts. Every other person rejected it, but he got it. And that gut feeling saw what the facts and figures of that particular situation couldn't see, and he made a very good decision. On the other hand, a disadvantage will be when you make a decision based on erratic emotions that are unchecked. Because the truth is, the gut is actually feeling. The gut can actually be emotion. So if you have not learned how to control or manage your emotions, if you follow your guts, you might make decisions that are erratic. I'll give you a perfect example. You're hiring a driver for school kids, a school bus. You're hiring a driver for a school bus, and you have a relative who is a graduate and who has little or no experience in driving. But because he's a graduate and you feel for him because maybe he hasn't gotten a job or something, you might be like, you know what, come drive these kids. Now, that is you employing someone based on how you feel, not based on the logical aspect of it. And because he's not experienced in the job, there is a risk of him driving those school children to school and back on a daily basis. Now, that's a perfect example of making a decision based on how you feel, because the feeling at that point in time is empathy. You're feeling empathy for your relative, and you don't want him to be jobless. But you giving him a job as a driver when he's not experienced is not the best decision. So that's a disadvantage of making decisions based on your gut. Now, moving to facts. These are logical, proven information that have been tested and trusted. That's why they are called facts. So people say facts and figures because there is a data to prove the information. Now, making decisions based on your facts is like the professional and most natural way to make decisions, because in organizations you'd see that there's a system for making decisions. You check the facts, you check the figures, you check the data, you prove it, you make sure that it's legit, you make sure that there's a certain amount of certainty to give you the desired result that you're looking for. For most professionals, this is like the most reliable for you. So that's facts and figures. Now, advantage of this is when you make decisions based on facts and figures that are proven, take note, proven, you are bound to make progress. All right, you're bound to make progress. Why? Because these things have not just been done by you. Several other people have done it, and they've gotten positive results, and those results have been documented. As they are documented, someone else can come and replicate that information. I think that's just science, if you ask me. It's basic science. All right. So this is why so many organizations value data. They don't joke with their data. Whatever information you work with, whatever data you work with, you make sure you store it appropriately according to the company's system of storing data, because this is very important. Because in the nearest future, you might want to embark on that same project. And what do you need? You need the facts and figures, the last time it was used. What were the lessons learned? What are the things that you need to put into consideration, adjust, tweak to get a better result? Facts and figures. They are bound to give you progress when you apply them. Now that we've defined what guts or fact is, that's not all. We have to answer which is more profitable to use in making a decision. Well, in order for us to find that out, we have to answer these questions. When should we use guts or fact? Who is using guts or fact? And what decision are you using it to make? This is very critical. But we have to understand this. So, now, who is applying guts or fact is referring to the individual. Which individual is applying this decision? Which individual is applying which method? All right. So now, for a younger person who is just starting out his career in, let's say, branding, or let's say marketing, or let's say management, you might want to start off on the logical point of view or the facts method, because you haven't really understood the way things work. So what you can rely upon is the facts and figures that have been put in place. And for an organization, that will be the systems that have been put in place to guide operations. That is what can help you and guide you in making your decisions. Why? This is because you are quite young, you're starting out your career, you haven't had much experience, and you don't really understand your emotions to start with. So as a young person who is just starting out his career, it's better for you to make use of the facts that are before you in making those decisions. Now, that is why employers will pay someone who has more experience than someone who doesn't have a lot of experience. You know why? Because someone who has had more experience has had an opportunity to master the use of his gut, his or her gut. Because when you're faced with more situations, you learn to understand what you're feeling and how it is leading you, and learn to understand it better. All right. So for a younger person who without any experience, it's better for you to use what? The facts and figures. But as you climb up the ladder of management or anything, climb up your years of experience, your career, whatever it is, your guts becomes sharper. So for someone who has spent years in the industry, yeah, it's advisable you can use your guts. But for someone who hasn't, please rely on facts and figures. When do you use facts or gut? Now, the thing, what I'll just say is there is no hard and fast rule about it. But what you should understand is, for me, use your gut when you know that when you make the decision, the consequences are not going to be grave. That's when I think you should use your gut. Don't rely on your gut so much for a decision that is going to cost you, number one, a lot of money. Number two, when a lot of people are at stake. Number three, when there are so many factors involved that you cannot control. No, don't involve your guts. Use your guts only for a situation where you think that, okay, I can manage this. If it goes south, I can manage this. For example, pardoning a staff when they misbehave, or employing is a more certified person over a non-certified person. For those kind of decisions, you can manage them. So if you use your facts, your guts, that's fine. But when you want to use facts, it's just the flip side of it. Use your facts for decisions that are major. Use your facts for decisions that involve a lot of money, involve a lot of people, decisions that determine a long course of your life or business. That's when you should use your facts. The last and final one is when to use your guts or the facts. I'll say this. It's never one in isolation. All right? You never use one in isolation. You have to use both of them. And I'll tell you why. That's because you cannot wholesomely rely on one to give you an accurate information. Remember, we said the advantage of using your gut is that sometimes it sees what your facts and figures cannot see. All right. Now, the facts and figures have been tested and trusted, so they can work for you over time. They should work for you over time. All right. Yeah, should. All right. So that is why you cannot use anyone in isolation. You have to learn how to master both of them. That's why experience is very important. You have to learn how to master both of them. Now, I'll tell you how to do that. Number one, when you're faced with making a decision, don't rush to facts and figures. No, don't do that. Ask yourself, what is my gut saying about this? All right? Don't rush to facts and figures. Ask yourself, what's my gut saying about this? When you hear what your gut has to say, then you say, okay, I've heard your gut. What does the facts and figures have to say about this situation? Take, for instance, you want to employ someone, or you're in this interview panel. Once a candidate sits in front of you, the first thing you should ask yourself is, what is my gut saying about this person? As you ask the person questions and the person is talking, what you should ask yourself is, what is my gut saying about this person? Not what is the CV saying about this person? How many certifications does this person have? Or how much is this person going to gain, or salary and whatnot? No, don't rush to do that, because the truth is, those facts or figures might be going contrary to what your gut is saying, and you might not even be able to see salient points that your gut will be able to point out to you. Remember, I said the guts are working on information that you have gathered, but you cannot interpret. So when you listen to your gut and then check facts or figures, you might now be able to see the reason why your gut was telling you no, don't. But if you jump straight to the facts, you might have a blind eye to those facts that you should have focused on if you listen to your guts. So that's why I'm saying this. Don't rush to make decisions based on facts only. Don't rush to make decisions based on your pockets. No, as a businessman, no, you don't do that. You make decisions on what your gut is telling you. If your gut is telling you now this is time for us to expand, and you only have half of the money, begin to make the plans. Begin to see how possible it can be. That is what being a visionary of a business is. Having understood what gut and fact is and when to use it, let me know in the comment section what method you're using and which you think is most appropriate. I'd like to chat with you. Now, if you want to book a session with us for consultation to really understand the factors of making decisions with your gut or feelings, go down in the description. Our phone numbers are there, or you can tap on the link there and book a session for consultation with us. We are happy to share with you. I'm Halel, and this is Solutions Podcast. See you in the next episode.